All right, I am sure you guys are just dying to know what we are going to be doing in Chapter 3, Section 4. Well, we are going to be using the quadratic formula to solve equations. And I know we pounded this into you for Algebra 1. Hopefully you still have it memorized. If you don't have it memorized, you need to memorize it. So if you're given a general form of ax squared plus bx plus c, a, b, and c are integers or numbers. I guess they don't necessarily have to be integers. And if you plug them into that formula, you can always solve what x is. You can find your x-intercepts, your roots, your solutions. So let's go ahead and do one. When you are solving a quadratic formula, it always needs to be set equal to 0. So start by subtracting 5. It's always a good idea to write down that quadratic formula. As you're doing the assignment, I would probably have it written in the corner of my paper. Plug in 1 for a, b is 3, c is -5. Simplify. Do what's underneath that radical first. Make sure you follow order of operations. You've got two numbers. Sometimes it'll say the exact, and if it says exact, you'd give your answer with the radical. If it says an approximate, you could do a decimal. All right, take a second, solve these. I will give you a hint on number 2. That's going to be 2x squared plus 7x plus 4. The way you put it in order, it needs to be standard form, so your x squared, your x, and then your constant. Go ahead and pause, and in a few seconds, I'll show the answer. All right, this one looks a little bit more complicated, but it's really not. 25x squared minus 8x equals 12x minus 4. Write the original problem. You want to make sure that it's in standard form, so you need to subtract 12x. -8 minus 12 gives you the -20, and you need to add 4. Plug everything in. A is 25, B is -20, C is 4. What's nice on this one is you get 0 underneath that radical. Just one answer, 2/5. You can check that. That's where it would be touching your x-axis if you were to graph it. And if you noticed, we only had one solution there. You can use what we call the discriminant to figure out how many solutions. On the last example we did, it was just touching the x-axis one place, so there'd be one solution. For the most part, we've been doing 2 solutions, 2 intercepts, and every once in a while it won't cross the x-axis at all, and you have no real, 2 imaginary. The discriminant is what is underneath that radical, b squared minus 4ac. If it's positive, 2 real. If it equals 0, 1 real. If it is negative, 2 imaginary, no real. I would pause and make sure you have this in your notes. So we want to find the discriminant here. For A, your equation, you figure out what your A, B, and C are. It's going to be 1 for A, -6 for B, 10 for C. Your discriminant is -4. So that's going to give you 2 imaginary solutions because your discriminant is negative. If you went ahead and solved it, it would be 3 plus or minus I. On B, you get 0, so you're going to have 1 real solution, which in this case is 3. And on our last one, your discriminant is 4, so you're going to have 2 real solutions, 2 and 4. Find a possible pair of integer values for A so that the equation ax squared minus 4x plus c equals 0 has 1 real solution. Well, in order for it to have one real solution, the discriminant must equal 0. So b squared minus 4ac has to be equal to 0. Well, we know what b is. B is negative 4. So a times c has to be 4. And there's more than one answer here. A can equal 1, C can equal 4. And check it by plugging it into Desmos and see if it works out. You could have also had A equals 2, C equals 2, A equals 4, C equals 1. All right, try this one on your own. I don't know if you guys can hear this at home, but my black lab thinks I'm talking to him and he's about ready to have a conniption. On this one possible answer is A equals 1, C equals negative 4. If you need more examples, get on the Big Idea website, look up more examples. So, kind of a concept summary on solving quadratics, graphing. My least favorite. It's hard to get an accurate answer. Square roots. That sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Factoring. I only do that if I can factor it within the first 30 seconds. Completing the square. It's not bad, but sometimes you have to deal with fractions. Quadratic equation formula. That's always going to work. So when I'm looking at a quadratic, I'll try square root or factoring first, and if it's not right away, I go straight to the quadratic formula. So, word problem. A juggler tosses a ball into the air. The ball leaves the juggler's hand 4 feet above the ground and has an initial velocity of 30 feet per second. The juggler catches the ball when it falls back to a height of 3 feet. How long is that ball in the air? If you need to, make a picture. Negative 16t squared plus the initial velocity times time plus the initial height. I think we've used that formula before. That one should be kind of one that you have someplace in your notes. I don't know if you guys just heard a dog bark. If he did, he's excited about this problem. So, just a second, guys. I'm going to pause. All right, I am back. So we're going to use h equals negative 16t squared plus v sub 0, which is initial velocity, times time, plus h sub 0, sometimes said h naught, which is your initial height. So our initial velocity was 30, our initial height was 4, and the height is 3. We can solve for t. Simplify it down. I don't want to factor that, and that would really be a pain in the neck to use completing the square. Plug everything into the quadratic formula. Simplify. Probably use my calculator to simplify this one. You're going to get a negative time. Disregard that. You can't have negative time. So the ball was in the air for about 1.9 seconds. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed.